Hi everyone, I'm Nadia, and in today's video I'll be making a beautiful geode resin tray, and I'm using Craft Resin. It's a 1-to-1 ratio by volume. I really enjoy working with them, and if you want to give them a try, I'll have a 10% discount code in my description. I mix together equal parts of the A and B and then separate it into smaller cups to add in my pigments. I always love to use paper cups because they're reusable and the old resin from your previous pour doesn't peel off. The first pigment I'm using is Just Resin's pigment paste in the shade Sage. Then I'm using Resin Pro's metallic powder in the shade Oro Rico. I did add in just a bit too much here because it is a floating pigment, which is great depending on the project that you're working on, but for this tray it ended up being just a little bit too much in the first layer, so I did end up doing a second layer. Then I'm using Just Resin's pigment paste in the shade Titanium White. I always mix pigment paste in the container before I add some into my cup of resin. Next, I'm using this beautiful champagne luster pigment, also from Just Resin. And lastly, I mix in some gold leaf flakes. I always like to dip my wooden stick first into a little bit of resin, and that makes it very easy to pick up the gold leaf flakes and place them into my cup. Now I'm ready to start pouring. I'm going to be doing this tray in a dirty pour, so I take all my different pigmented resins and I pour them into one cup, very slightly mix them, and then pour them into the molds. And I play around with different color combinations for my dirty pour. So this is how I left my tray, and I came back the next day, and because my resin was too runny, everything pulled into the center, and as you can tell, that gold metallic powder that I mentioned previously is all floating on the top in the center, which I don't really like how that looks, so I'm mixing in my resin once more to do one more layer. I mix in all of the same pigments except for that gold metallic powder, and I redo my dirty pour. I'll have all the products that you see in this video listed in my description if you want to give this tutorial a try. I use a torch gun to pop any air bubbles, and as always, I'm moving it very quickly so that I don't burn my resin or my mold. Then I added in these little gold crystal knobs. And here I am the next day demolding. The resin did go a little bit over the mold, so I've made quite a mess, but I do work on baking paper, which allows for very easy cleanup. As you can see, these larger chunks of resin I can just peel right off with my fingers. And for the little drops of resin, I use this scraping tool and it gets rid of them so easy. It's actually quite satisfying. I remove any of the lifted edges on the tray with my X-Acto knife. And I wanted to add in some gold details, so I take my gold edding marker and try to outline around the resin crystals. But then I decided to take some alcohol ink and mix it with that gold metallic powder from Resin Pro, and this is one of the great uses for those floating powders. I use a paintbrush to apply it around the crystals and on top of the crystals. And I also outline this little opening with the gold leaf flakes. Then I'm getting the tray ready for a top coat, and to do this I'm using liquid latex. I apply it around the edges and then use a silicone makeup brush to spread it to the very edge. And this will protect the bottom side of my tray since I'm doing the top coat out of the molds, and any excess resin will flow over the edge. I mixed in my craft resin once more and did my top coat. And the next day I come back and remove the liquid latex. I add on my gold trim and I'm using my gold edding marker. After I did this step, I realized a little bit late that there were a few pieces of dust that got onto my top coat, and I ended up redoing it actually several more times because one time there was a little fiber and then I got some more dust. So this was just one of those times that the top coat didn't come out perfectly on the first or second try, which is a little bit frustrating, but it does happen and it's all part of the process. And this tray was looking a little bit thin, so those extra top coats added more thickness to it. And here's the final product. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. Follow me on my Instagram, Summer Girl Designs, and my mom's Instagram, Wild Heart Resin Art.